Energy writes code. From traces to DNA. Film introduction. Energy writes the code. From traces to DNA. Author, Nguyen Song Leet, who is still awaiting the results of a competition, the Origin of Life Prize, $10 million. Life is inherently unpredictable. During these days of waiting for the prize results, I thought I should share the answer with everyone. Who wrote the DNA genetic code? My answer is energy. So what is energy and how does it write the code? I will explain this through a series of episodes titled, Energy Writes the Code, From Traces to DNA. 1. What is energy? A question we think we know. Humans have lived with energy since the dawn of consciousness, but today, when asked, what is energy? Most of us can only say, it makes things move. We know energy by its consequences, by the traces it leaves on objects. Like sunlight burning the ground, like electric current tilting a magnet needle, like the heartbeat vibrating a chest. No one sees energy. We only see what it writes on matter. A tree is a line that light writes on chlorophyll. A mountain range is a page of memory that geothermal heat and gravity carve into rock. And the human body, a giant record that the energy of the universe has cleverly encoded into life. But the deeper question remains. How does energy write code? How do invisible vibrations of DNA strands learn to form the letters A, T, G, C, and then teach cells how to breathe, how to reproduce, and even how to feel? 2. Traces of energy. When movement becomes information. Imagine a wind blowing across the sand. Initially, the sand is just a myriad of separate grains. But as the wind passes, it leaves behind soft, regular, rhythmic waves. The wind does not try to draw, but the pattern is the inevitable result of energy acting on matter. From this, we understand one thing. Every time energy passes through matter, it leaves a trace. That trace is information. That is, the recording of the state of energy in the form of matter. Information, therefore, is not something abstract. It is how matter remembers energy. A salt crystal remembers the arrangement of ions. An iron ball remembers the direction of the magnetic field that once passed through it. And in a living organism, each DNA molecule remembers billions of years of selection by solar energy, by reactions, by life itself. In other words, energy is imprinted by structure, and structure is transmitted by information. 3. When matter self-organizes. The beginning of coding. If energy is fleeting and dissipates, nothing is recorded. But when energy encounters the right environment, one with limits, stability, and interactions, it begins to take shape. In the early world of Earth, billions of tiny molecules floated in warm water, excited by lightning, ultraviolet light, or heat from hydrothermal vents. They collided, bonded, separated, and recombined. These reactions were repeated, and among the countless variations, some more stable, more ordered structures were retained. They remember the reaction pathway that created them, as if each molecule were a little memory. At that moment, energy begins to write, not in words, but in chemical bonds. Each bond is a word, each chain of molecules is a sentence, and when those sentences begin to self-replicate, the language of energy becomes the genetic code. 4. Templating, the first mechanism of coding. In chemistry, there is a beautiful principle called templating, which means template. A molecule with a certain shape will cause another molecule to join in the same order. Just as when we pour water into a mold, it will solidify according to the shape of that mold. This is the primitive mechanism of information replication. A stable chain of matter can guide the formation of a new chain. In this way, the structure becomes the message, and the message can be duplicated. Imagine a simple RNA strand in the early RNA world. As the free bases, A, U, G, C, float around, they naturally pair with the original strand, A, U, G, C. Thus, a second strand forms, a mirror image of the original strand. After splitting, each strand can serve as a template for another strand. This is where energy becomes text. Each bond is formed with energy, and the result of that energy has meaning about how the energy is used. 5. Variation and selection. When writing learns for itself. No copy is perfect. During the process of replication, energy is not evenly distributed, the environment changes, reactions go wrong, and so errors or mutations occur. Some errors cause the strand to become unstable, to disintegrate. But there are accidental deviations that make it copy faster, more stable, or more efficient at capturing energy. Nature, by not needing a reader or a writer, has become the editor. Efficiently copied sequences will survive longer, and by their very existence, they influence their environment, changing the way energy continues to flow. This is the first loop of energy intelligence, when energy regulates itself through the information it generates. If we look more broadly, life is not matter that thinks, but energy that optimizes its own flow through matter. 6. Integration into a system. When energy maintains itself. Single replication is not enough. A single RNA chain or molecule, even if it can replicate itself, is prone to disintegration without a home to protect it. But nature, like a patient programmer, does not stop. Fat molecules floating in solution begin to form membranes, enclosing the chains inside, retaining energy and raw materials. These living bubbles can grow, split, and then replicate. Inside them, chemical reactions take place more stably, more efficiently. It is the transition from reaction to system, from replication to maintenance. And from here, energy not only writes code, but also reads its own code. It learns how to store DNA, how to interpret RNA, and how to act protein. These three functions correspond to the three stages: write, translate, execute of any language. So, life is the story of energy learning to program itself. 7. From DNA to consciousness. The deepest language of energy. When the first DNA strand formed, energy already had a language in its hands that could reproduce, self-check, and improve. Over billions of years, that language expanded into the body, the senses, and then the brain, a superstructure where energy not only flows, but also recognizes its flow. Consciousness, in the deepest sense, can be seen as energy reflecting its own behavior through information. When we think, we are reading the lines of code that energy has written in the brain, and at the same time, by thinking, we are writing new code. The question, how does energy write code, is therefore not only about the beginning of life, but also about the meaning of existence. Because if energy can write DNA, then humans, the highest form of energy, are continuing to write AI, language, art, and knowledge. All are just different forms of energy continuing to write itself. Underscore underscore. 8. Conclusion. The universe as an unfinished book. Every atom, every cell, every thought in our heads is a letter in the endless manuscript of energy. Energy does not speak in words, but it records in images, writes in structures, and reads in reactions. And DNA, with its 4 basic letters A, T, G, C, is just one of the countless languages that energy has created to tell its story. Perhaps that is why when we look through a microscope and see a double helix, we see not only chemistry, but also traces of time, of light, and of the blossoming cosmic intelligence. Energy, after all, is the greatest writer. It writes matter, it writes life, it writes consciousness, and through each of us, it continues to write.